Peace and blessings, people. So I'm here in Okinawa. So for those of you that don't know, I used to live in Okinawa for 4.5 years. I was here working at a hospital and also doing some research. And I was doing some nutritional research on a blue zone because Okinawa is a blue zone. And for those who don't know what a blue zone is, there are five blue zones around the world. And Okinawa for decades was known as the most fluent and the most populous blue zone. And what that means is they had the highest populations of what is known as centenarians, people who live to 100. And so the blue zones represents populations who live longer than the average population. And so I came here to learn about their culture. I have read this book called Ikigai, and which means, essentially finding your meaning and purpose in life. And so that's what interested me in Okinawa. And then essentially what kind of inspired me to come here was learning about the centenarians here, the blue zone population. So I'm back here. It's been 6 or 7 years since I've been back here in Okinawa. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited, let me see here. I'm excited for, just being here, being around the culture. And what I mean by that, the people here are like the most, in my opinion, like they have the most amount of peace. Like they're all about peace here. And I love that because I needed peace when I first came here in 2013. And I was on a healing journey for myself. And what I discovered was being around peace inspired me to want the peace not only around me, but within me as well, too. So I'm excited for that reason. I have so many friends here as well, too. So excited for that reason as well, too. So go see my old karate sensei and all the friends that I met here. And also excited to go back to the part of the island where most of the centenarians live, which is Ogini, okay, or Gimi, which is the northern part of the island, closer to Nago, okay? So I'm gonna take you guys along the journey with me, and so I think this will be pretty dope. All right, peace. Yep, this is Okinawa. Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today is going to be, as you can see, it's a lot different. Today I'm in Okinawa, Japan. This is really where my journey with you started. Before I even know you, or before I even know I was going to be on a journey with you. I moved to Okinawa, Japan in 2012, I do believe. And it was an experience that I really didn't understand what the experience was gonna be, but I did have a calling for Okinawa, Japan. To give you a little bit of backstory, I started my healing journey for myself in my late 20s. And when I started that journey, I started it because I had high blood pressure, sleep apnea. I was almost 50 pounds overweight, had inflammation all over my body. And it just didn't make sense for me as a 28-year-old to be going through all of that. And I had suffered with high blood pressure since I was 16 years old, okay? Now, it wasn't until my late 20s that I was actually wanting to do something about it. And so as I start this journey trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, what type of diet I'm gonna eat, what type of exercise I'm gonna do, I tried literally everything and nothing really worked. Nothing brought my blood pressure down. I would lose like 4 or 5 pounds and then put it on the next week, no matter what exercise I did, no matter what diet I did. And so really out of desperation, I decided to adopt a plant-based lifestyle with no background in terms of like family or understanding what a plant-based lifestyle was. But in 21 days, I lost 50 pounds. No, let me correct that. In about 21 days, I lost 17 pounds. And in 60 days, I lost between 45 and 50 pounds, okay? In 60 days after adopting a plant-based lifestyle, herbal detoxing, etc. So I lost about 50 pounds in about 60 days, okay? And so this started me to reading, because now working in a hospital and understanding that the primary way that we treat people is with pharmaceutical drugs. And now I just healed 3 things that in the hospital they typically can't do anything about weight loss, unless you count something like bariatric surgery, which comes with a lot of side effects. They can't do anything about high blood pressure other than treat you with it, meaning your blood pressure is manipulated down to a lower value, but you still have high blood pressure. Sleep apnea, they put you on a CPAP machine. And so there were no real options. And that was the first time I was understanding the difference between wanting to be healed and wanting to be treated. And so for me, when I started this journey and then I lose almost 50 pounds, I don't have the sleep apnea anymore. I don't have to take the blood pressure medication. This for me was like eye-opening, especially being a healthcare professional. And so for me, I wanted to understand, why do plants heal versus pharmaceutical drugs only treat? And so I started doing all this reading, and that led me into the spiritual journey, wanting to know more about me, wanting to understand my purpose, because I felt like this was my new purpose now. And what I discovered along that journey was a book called Ikigai. And Ikigai in Japanese means finding your purpose or your reason for life. And so in reading that book, they talk a little bit about the people in Okinawa, Japan. And specifically, they talked a little bit about the people in Ogami Village, which is where I'm at right now on the beach. And so when the job offer came out of nowhere to go to Okinawa, Japan and work, the first thing I thought to myself was, I would love to meet those people in Okinawa, Japan, specifically Ogami Village, which is where I'm at, who are living to 100, no disease, dying quietly in their sleep, and primarily eating a plant-based lifestyle, which we'll get into in just a second. And so I take the job, don't know any Japanese, had never been to Japan, and pack some bags, sell all my things, jump on a plane, and move to Okinawa, Japan. And having the opportunity to come up here to Ogami Village, see people who are 97, 100, 102, 105, who are still gardening, walking up hills, lifting heavy things, having fluid conversations. It was a game changer for me, and let me tell you why. My grandmother, who died at 67 of colorectal cancer, I remember going to her funeral, and I was in love with my grandmother. And as I'm sitting there crying in the funeral as a little boy, in comes my great-grandmother, her mother, who is 105, walks into the funeral, kisses her daughter, and goes to sit down. And what it reminded me of when I came here and started watching the people who are 97, 102, 100, 105, who are fluid, still strong, still have their mental faculties. It reminded me of my great-grandmother, and it then reminded me of the difference in lifestyles between my grandmother, who died at 67, and my great-grandmother, who lived to 105. And what it showed me was the modern conveniences of food, microwaves, things of that nature, my grandmother adopted. Okay, she had 11 kids, so of course it was very difficult for her to manage feeding 13 people, including her and my grandfather. And then on top of that, all of the grandkids who lived in the house as well too. We lived there at some point. Almost all the grandkids at some point lived in the house. Trying to feed all of those kids, my grandfather, etc., her children. And then on top of that, having to limit their resources with money, having to understand how to not only feed them, but how to wash all their clothes. The list goes on, and in come all of these modern conveniences, primarily food. And what I remember about being at my grandmother's house is that a lot of things were coming out of the Crisco can, you know, Jimmy Dean sausages, like all the kind of stuff that we would cringe at eating today. But those were a part of my grandmother's, you know, way of taking care of her family. Now, I juxtapose that, you go to my great grandmother's house, who is on a farm, makes everything from scratch. Mostly everything is coming from the backyard, the side of the yard, or the front of the yard, including how we heal ourselves, even herbs that we would use to heal ourselves. The water came from the land. It was just two different lifestyles, one over here and another one over here. And so as I'm here at Ogami Village, at the time, back in 2012, 2013, and I'm sitting with them, having conversations with them, asking them about their lifestyle. What do you eat? What do you do throughout the day? It reminded me of my grandmother, who got up on the farm early in the morning, you know, gardening, farming, grabbing all the food, coming here to Ogami, seeing the same exact thing. And it reminded me, we have to get back in touch with that type of lifestyle. And so I was realizing that's what I did when I unknowingly adopted a plant-based lifestyle, started incorporating herbs. Essentially what I was doing was going back to that more natural lifestyle. And so I'm here in Ogami Village today. It's been about 6 or 7 years since I've been here, since I moved away from Japan. I stayed here for almost 4.5, 5 years. And so coming back today is really nostalgic. I learned so much being here. As you can see, Okinawa is a very beautiful place. I mean, we'll just take a little quick tilt here, kind of see, you can kind of see like this, like the island itself is very majestic. And so, of course, that was a huge part of the peace that I was able to, you know, achieve while I was here, just being in an environment like this, but also the people. The people are so different here as well, too. And very different from even the people who are on the mainland of Japan, because Okinawa is an island about 1,000 miles south of Japan. And if you look at it, where it's located, the best way to sort of give you an example of where it's located, it's almost on the equator, around the same area as Miami. So the weather here is like Miami. As opposed to you go to the mainland, in the winter, it snows. I mean, it snows a lot. And as opposed to here, my time being here, I don't remember it ever getting above or below 60 degrees when I was living here in Okinawa. And I lived here for almost 5 years and it never got below 60. So the climate is very tropical. And also the essence of the people is very tropical too. That's why I say like the Okinawans are very different from the Japanese, okay, in a lot of ways. Even their original language is very different than the Japanese. So there's a lot of things that I learned here, and I'm hoping that, you know, I just want to give you a little bit of the essence today. Take you on a little tour to show you. I'm going to show you something real cool in just a second, but this is a reminder of how important it is to go back to the Garden of Eden. You know, like, we have essentially allowed ourselves to be sold the concept of convenience. And in exchange for the convenience, we've given up our health, we've given up our well-being, and we've given up our mental peace as well too. So they sold us processed foods, we received it, we got sicker, okay? At one time, we all had beautiful music. Music was never negativity, it was always beauty. But now they're selling us negative music. You know, our environments that we were surrounded by were natural, completely natural, okay? But now we're living in metropolitan cities. So a lot has changed. When I say a lot has changed in terms of like how we're supposed to live in the Garden of Eden versus how we're living today. And I believe that this is not only why we're so sick, I also believe that this is why we're so depressed as well too, okay? I also believe that this is why we're so disconnected from each other as well too. I believe that a lot of that is intentional. A lot of it is intentional. And I believe that if you start to look, instead of just being in the system, take a moment, step outside of the system, just for a moment. Step outside of the system and start to think to yourselves, like, especially in my community, start to think to yourself how everything has been created for us to essentially be like chattel, for us to be like domesticated animals, okay? Even our work environments today, you go in a work environment, people are working in cubicles, like little stalls that they put horses in. When you think about how much they work us, okay? People are now working 10, 12-hour shifts, okay? When you think about what we're being compensated for, our time, our most valuable asset in the world. I tell people time is currency. It's the one piece of currency that you never can get back, okay? So that we're exchanging our most valuable currency for hours and wages, okay? That they don't properly compensate us for. You understand? And when you start to think about the prison system, how the prison system is just another system of slavery. When they go into the prison systems, our people, like, they're working for all of these major companies for pennies on the dollar, okay? Pennies on the dollar, okay? So you're essentially becoming a slave because you're working for a company for free. When you think about working for 25 cents, 50 cents, even if it was $2, just think about it. Like, when you start to think about the school systems, they don't teach us how to make our own food. They don't teach us the importance of being in nature. They don't teach us about proper financing, okay? Personal finance. They don't teach us about any of that stuff because they want us to be these domesticated animals that are dependent on a system. They don't want us to be independent. They don't want us to be free of the system, okay? They want us to be basically batteries in a matrix, okay? Batteries in the matrix. That's why I always say the movie The Matrix isn't a movie, it's a documentary. And so it feels good to come back here to Ogami and, you know, just be in the energy. It's so nostalgic to be back here. I was here for like 5 years, and as soon as I left, I said I have to bring this back to the people. Now let me give you a few things why Okinawa is so special, and specifically Ogami, okay? First things first, Okinawa, but specifically Ogami, okay, is a blue zone. Now, a lot of people, when I say that, they tend to think about the entire island of Okinawa. I'm not talking about the entire island of Okinawa because you may or may not be aware, but a lot of the island has American military bases on it, okay? And with that comes a lot of Western culture. So I'm on the northern part of the island near Nago, where Ogami Village is. And as you go south towards Naha, which is where the airport is, and especially in central Okinawa, which is like the area of Chitan, you go in that area, you're gonna see a McDonald's, you're gonna see a Domino's Pizza, a Pizza Hut. This is all outside of the military bases. But the reason why it's there is because they understand that when Americans come, those are the things that Americans are looking for. Okay, so it was initially a business idea. You'll see like KFC here as well too. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is it's important you know and understand. I'm not talking about that part of the island. I'm talking about Ogami, which is specifically where for decades, Okinawa, but specifically Ogami, has had the largest number of centenarians, people who live to 100, than any other population. Now that's slowly dwindling because the culture is shifting, okay? But it's important to know and understand the reason why they consistently had that large population of centenarians was because of certain factors, and we'll get into those in just a moment. But I want to make that distinction because I always get people who say, well, I was a military vet there, and I saw people eating a whole bunch of meat and a whole bunch of egg and blah, 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 blah. Yes, you're gonna see that in the central part of the island, the southern part of the island. Again, I'm specifically talking about a specific group, okay? The case in point I can give you is Loma Linda, California. So there are 5 blue zones around the world. Okinawa, Japan, all right? Loma Linda, California. I'll explain why in just a second. Sardinia, okay? Icaria in Greece, and then Nicoya in Costa Rica. All right, so those are the 5 blue zones. And what those blue zones represent is peoples and populations that have the highest amount of centenarians, irregardless of their regions and cultures. As you can see, those are different places, right? Now, if you were to think about Loma Linda as a blue zone, which is in California, I could easily say California is a blue zone, but you can't say that, all right? There's a specific reason why Loma Linda is considered a blue zone, and that specific reason is really because of the large number of 7-day Adventists there, okay? They have a 7-day Adventist hospital there. And because this large population, and most people don't know, many 7th-day Adventists are primarily plant-based, if not vegan, vegetarian, okay? So that means that they eat a very small portion of animal-based products. This is why they're a blue zone in Loma Linda, California, okay? Can't say California, gotta say Loma Linda, and then you gotta understand the specifics behind Loma Linda that I just mentioned with the 7-day Adventists and how they typically subscribe to a vegetarian vegan diet, all right? Same thing here in Okinawa. It's not entire Okinawa that is a blue zone, it's specifically Ogami, all right? And specifically Ogami because this small village kept to their culture and their principles around eating healthy, okay, living healthy, all right? One of those principles is a principle called Hara Hachibu, all right? Hara Hachibu means eat only to 80%, all right? So that's one principle. Another principle is how in the village, they take responsibility for each other. So an 80-year-old would be paired up with somebody who's 102. A 90-year-old would be paired up with somebody who's 105, okay? A 70-year-old would be paired up with somebody who's 92, all right? And the whole essence of that is social responsibility for each other, caring for each other, so you don't feel lonely, because feeling lonely will take seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years off of your life, okay? So that's another principle, all right? Another really important thing is they primarily eat a plant-based lifestyle, okay? When I say primarily, I'm saying 90%. 90% of what they eat is plant-based, okay? Only about 5 to 10% of what they eat in that village, Ogami, is meat. And most of it is meat that is put into like vegetables that they cook to season the vegetables, to add flavor, okay, or egg. But again, that only represents about 5 to 10% in Ogami, not all of Okinawa, okay? So that's a huge part of it as well too. And then the incorporation of superfoods. So mugwort tea is really huge in the village, okay? They also eat a lot of the purple Japanese potato, which is highly, highly nutritional dense compared to the American white potato that is eaten, okay? Loaded with antioxidants, all right? Another important thing is they incorporate things like ginger and turmeric in their diet as well, and other herbal teas. So those are really huge factors as to why they live so long, but they also live a very active lifestyle as well too. So what I want to do real quickly is, now that we kind of gone over what are the blue zones, why Okinawa, Japan has consistently been one of the greater blue zones, and why that's changing also with the westernized culture coming in. The last thing I want to leave you with before I go show you something special is that what we also notice is that when you take some of the grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren who live in the village, and then let's say for instance they marry an American soldier, move to the States, these people have never had anybody in their family who has had high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, etc. They move to America, and then all of a sudden they get overweight, they get high blood pressure, they get high cholesterol, and then they leave the States, come back, and then all of that goes away. Okay? Now, the reason why that's important is because a lot of people like to sum things up to genetics. So they'll just say overall Asians are healthier and leaner. No, that's not true. If you eat the Western diet, you will get the same thing all Westerners get as well too. And as I always say, the American food system and food supply is banned in over 30 countries, and Japan is one of those countries where the food is literally banned here. So I hope that gives you an understanding of the importance of understanding how poisoned our food system is, and how when we embrace a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle, all of these conditions that seem to be incurable and only treatable with drugs, all of a sudden, all of those things reverse. Not just one, okay? Because what happens with drugs, each drug is treating a specific condition, okay? But when you embrace a healthy, holistic, plant-based lifestyle, all of a sudden, everything resolves itself, okay? And that's why I say, by far, plant medicine is above all. This is why I named my book, Vegetation Over Medication as well, too. So make sure you check that out. So the next thing we're gonna do is I wanna show you the philosophy of Ogami Village by showing this really cool sort of waterfall and stone that they have here. So come along with me, I'll show you. All right, peace. Peace and blessings, guys. Welcome back. So I wanted to show you something that is going to change your perspective on aging, longevity. And I think that's really important because a lot of people are under the impression when I get 30, this happens. When I get 40 years old, this happens. I got a midlife crisis. When I get 50 years old, I got to go to get a colonoscopy. When I get 60, it's almost time to retire. People have all of these ideas about what aging is. And here in Ogami Village in Okinawa, Japan, they have a totally different philosophy. Not only a totally different philosophy, but a totally different lifestyle as well too. And so this is one of the stones that is here in the village. And this stone is essentially their philosophy, okay, that they live by in the village. And this is one of the reasons why I also think they tend to live longer as well too. A lot of people, when you start to believe you're old, you are. If whatever you believe is true, okay, whether you believe you will or you believe you won't, it's true, okay. And I think that also factors in when we think about aging and longevity as well too. So I'm sure you guys can't, decipher what this Japanese means, but it's a beautiful line. It says, at 70 years old, you are a child. First line, okay? Next line, at 80 years old, you are a young person, okay? And if at 90, someone from heaven invites you over, third line. Fourth line, it says, tell them to come back when you are 100, okay? When you start to think about that philosophy, line by line, then it helps you understand why they live the lives that they do. And a lot of the people that I would see in the village, they would be like 80 years old, but still muscular, still doing things that somebody in their 40s would be doing. Still looking like maybe they're 40, 50 years old. So when you have this philosophy, you have to think to yourself, what are you telling your entire body when you believe that you're still young? We always see people who, they seem to have this sort of outlook on life that is a young outlook, and it makes them look younger. And I believe that the people here in Ogami Village, they got it right. They got it right. They got the real understanding of what it means, not only to age gracefully, but to live gracefully as well too. And I think that's so important because in today's society, most people's chronological age doesn't match their biological age. And let me explain what I mean by that. So chronologically, you could be 30, 40 years old. Okay, but when we look at your biology and your biochemistry on the inside, it may say that you're 50, 60 years old. I've seen people who are in their 30s and so their chronological age is 32. But when you look at their biology, their biological age, it looks like they're around about 55. Okay? Now, of course, you can't just have this philosophy in mind, because one of the things that fortify philosophy is not only the things you think, but what you speak and what you do. And when you look at the people in Ogami, and I think about my great grandmother, what they thought, what they spoke, what they did aligned up. Okay, and because it aligned up, they may have been 80 years old, but biologically they were only 45 years old. Okay, and I think that this philosophy incorporates that. All right, and I think, again, you can't just live on words. I'm going to repeat it one more time for you. At 70 years old, you are a child. First line. At 80, you are a young person. And if at 90, third line, a person from heaven invites you over, fourth line, tell them to come back when you're 80. Okay? That is the way to live. That is the lifestyle. I think we'll start to age gracefully when we believe that, but not only when we believe it, when we start to live it. I think that's the most important part of the entire equation, is how you live your life, is how you'll think about your life, how you'll speak about your life, how you'll see your life, how you'll interpret your life. Okay? And that's what I learned from the people with Ogami, and I give thanks for them. I give thanks for them for carving out space for me to talk to them. I give thanks for them for living a life that could be an example for us. And I give thanks for them for sort of adopting me for those 4.5 years that I was here. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been guidance for you on your journey, whether you're on your healing journey or you're about to start your healing journey or you don't know where to start. I think this is a perfect way to not only start, to initiate, and to end. Okay, so until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed from Ogami, Okinawa, Japan. Peace.